do so.
I'm haunted by it.
Welcome to our work session.
Okay, ready for me?
I'm ready for you, sir.
Okay. Well, I have this very exciting PowerPoint with all our findings. So what I was hoping to accomplish is review site plan options and then look at what building plans come from the different site plan options and then just talk about what you would like us to do next. So going into site plan options. The first plan was the plan that Skip, you presented to us, this square, I'm calling it the square plan for lack of a better. From a site point of view, the first thing that we looked at with this was how to gain access to or around the wetlands. The building will fit without being on the wetlands. And I'm going to have to point because my pointer won't work on this. So there's enough room. The local ordinance allows construction up to that light blue zone. So the building and its square configuration can fit in there. There is an existing leach field here, which would probably be located further back in that direction. Your well's right here. By the way, you made a comment about that mound that's out there. I suspect the mound that we see here is material that was excavated when that was, but that's neither here nor there. One of the things, it is possible to make a crossing of the wetlands, but that would involve a state approvals process, and which may or may not be granted and is somewhat cumbersome. So what we're trying to do is avoid encroaching on the wetlands at all, which this scheme does. It effectively blocks off access to the upland further up in the site. I'll grab this. See if I can do this from here. Oh, I can. Great. If you had this configuration, this red box in each of these, it represents where the control point would be for the building. And where would you put, in effect, the desk and the staff so that you could have sight lines into the various parts of the building. So somewhere near the middle would give you control of all this. You'd have to make some openings in this wall here so that you could have some ability to survey what's going on in that. And then this green rectangle represents the size of the meeting room that you've asked for. So where would you put the two likely places in this scenario to put the meeting room would be either in this wing up front or back here. And why that's important is the meeting room is out of sight, but the leftover space is what you want to be able to keep an eye on from the desk. So that's that configuration. There's Skip has provided us a design of a truss that would take this building and either eliminate this back wing and carry a roof up to the ridge of that. In each case we've shown roof. This shows another variant which is not quite so high, which runs the ridge front to back. So essentially everything in here would remain as it appears today, and what you wouldn't see was that there was a large roof out the back. Okay, so the advantages of this approach is that it's square, it has the minimum perimeter of other than a circular building, and it keeps the current front. The disadvantage is that it doesn't allow for expansion of parking or access to the usable land in the back. The roof height gets quite high. It is more complex than some of the other solutions I'm going to show you. If I go back for a moment, it touches more of the existing building than you need to, meaning, oh, excuse me, there we go. Meaning that the interface between the addition and the existing building is all along this line. So you have to construct a new structural wall along the back of this, there's a lot of interaction between the new and the old. You may comment at will about, oh, there it is, how that would go. So here's a roof. Difficult to get a view of the whole space from the control point. That's true for a lot of these. And then the construction phasing and access. You have to get around through the parking lot to the wetland side of the site in order to build it. And you have to basically interact with this wall while you guys are on the other side. And then this room, for example, has to be demolished while you're... So we looked at some other, same basic concept, but just other shapes. This one just says, let's just only touch the building along the very back. And then just build a similar rectangle, which is the simplest shape, and only interact with the library the least amount. This suggests that you would put your control point basically right where I'm standing. That would become a new secondary entrance. And then from here I would look back into there, and the addition would be out there. One way to make that work is to take the wing that you can't see from here and make that into the meeting room. So when you come in the old front door out there, everything to the left would be the meeting room. The adult section would be the meeting room, and that's the same size again. Roof ends up looking more like a big house, little house, back house, barn arrangement. It does allow you to get through and get up to 46 spaces on the site. And any further use you might have for this land in the future, you have some way to get back there. Septic's back near where the other septic is. Let's go to the next one. Okay, advantages are, has access to the uplands back here, has adequate parking. So you're just building a rectangular barn structure. It only would interact with this building from that corner to this corner. Phasing would be a little bit more straightforward because Andre and crew could just move into the back country and do the whole construction without tearing this part apart. It reuses the entrance you have here and the entrance you have there. So as a general philosophy, if we want to hold down costs, the least we can possibly do to this building and still have a functioning result makes sense. Oh, and night use. One thing I want to talk about night use. I'll go back to... I have larger plans of this, but idea being that you can create a bubble that allows you access to the meeting room and toilets if you create them in that location, so that the library can close and people can still park out here and go in and out and use the meeting room after you've gone home for the day.
So this becomes our main access, our main entrance?
It would make sense to make that the main. I have large-scale plans where you
okay.
can see that, and there's actually multiple variants of that. Now, there's disadvantages. It has more perimeter than the big square, and it has a distance from where I'm standing to the most remote part of the building is greater. The sight lines we can work on. This is a different variant, which is sort of somewhat halfway between. Still allowing space to get parking past, creating a new entrance and putting the desk over there. Also makes sense to put the meeting room at the back end so that from the circulation desk I can see. I have straight sight to the most I can. It means you have to really burrow through here to open this side up, or put less uses over here that you're less concerned about. Kind of roof form would kind of look like that. Again, it has the parking, the uplands, some structural simplicity. It's a little more fussy because you're rebuilding in this area. Keeps the front entry, has more perimeter. Phasing's more complicated because you're interacting with this piece a little bit more. Okay, I know everybody poo-pooed this, but I felt as part of our duty we had to look at it, which is what happens if you just do the square with the addition in the front. And everybody went, ooh, it'll be right on the street. It is actually 35 feet from the building to the edge of the pavement. Went out and measured it. But just want to see what would happen if we looked at that. It does allow the parking to basically go to the back. And so instead of looking at strip mall style parking in front, you're looking at a new front of the building. It is challenging. You can put the control point in the middle, but again, you've got the same problem with the other rectangle that you have to somehow bridge halfway through this wall so that you can see in both directions. Would make sense to take the wing that we're in and make the meeting room. You'd have to take out this room right here and make the meeting room in that direction. Oh, there's no roof plan. It had all these going, and it consolidates the parking all in one place by an entrance, which makes some sense. It has a little less perimeter, works for nights. Depending on what your attitude is, it's more radical, because the building would look entirely different from the street. It wouldn't look like you saved the old building, even though you did. It would look like you built a new building. Control is difficult, again, visual control of the space. Again, it's more complicated to build because Andre is going to be stepping all over everybody in the front yard. You also lose the existing pavement that you have out front because that's the new construction site. So that's not very many spaces, but it's going in the wrong direction. So there's 35 feet to pavement. So I have building plans on paper, which I'll show you, but I'm going to go through all. I went through the exercise of laying out your program in each of these. So you can see, now there's probably 5 ways to do each one, but I took what I thought was the best one each case. So that is the same program that you had going back, exact same thing, just cut out electronically with scissors and paste it in. So this is the big square. Here's the program space in that wing. Here's the old entrance. It is pretty important that there's some toilets created that support this for after-hours use. So you'd have to come into a vestibule, into the program space. You need a second way out of the program space, and what that is going through a vestibule and out to a new entrance over here. And this would become the entrance, primary entrance for the library. One thing you expressed in the past was the desire for the children's area to be accessible to the program space. In this case, it would be an adult would escort everybody across the vestibule. So mechanical space ends up sort of in the middle. The circulation desk is here. There's just sort of a glancing view down in this direction. Directors in the middle. Workrooms over here. Salvage the 2 toilet rooms that you have. One becomes the children's. The other one becomes staff off the workroom. And then in order to maintain the sight lines, break room, an additional adult toilet, and the history room, which are the other enclosed spaces, are away so that from here you can see into the corner. And this basically says, well, basically, I will show you. If I can get this onto it. So we're saying adults are there, children are down there, staff is kind of in the middle with some over on the right, and the meeting room's over there. So that's the diagram for that.
How many square feet is that?
It was the same as, it's the original one, it was 9,000, just under 10. In each case, it's the same square footage. just
Okay,
how-
let me make sure I understand. So this square is the 86 by 98?
88,
88 by 98?
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that was 87, that was 8,625 feet.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, inclusive of the.
Inclusive of the other. So we're adding 4,725 feet.
In each case, it's, the size is the same wall, it's just
Sure.
rearranged in different locations.
Sure.
Okay, so this is one of the variants that, having gone through, I dismissed the one where we built out in the front, because I
Yeah.
know everybody hated it. And then the one where you messed around in here seemed, it was neither fish nor fowl, it didn't seem to have any advantage. So there's three versions of this. This one puts the adults in the back, puts the children in the front, and the staff is right here, so there's a new entrance, which would be over there outside. Come to a desk, and this is to be centrally located so that you can see both children and adults. And the part you can't see around the corner is the meeting room. So this is the same configuration as this big square plan where you have this. Everyone with me?
Yeah, but that was the one that you weren't very thrilled about either, though, right?
No, that was actually the other one,
Oh.
but yeah. So, here's another, everybody will get used to playing this game and you'll all do it. This one says, well, let's put the adults in the back, the children in the old piece. Now this is, if I'm an adult and I'm paying for this, I want the new piece.
Right, good thinking.
And put the staff in the middle, and then put the meeting room at the back. So now, my chief disadvantage is that I've got a children's area around the corner. But, and in each case also, you'll see that these little rooms, the mechanical space, because of the bulk of it, this relocates mechanical, some here, and some, most of them keep the mechanical room that you have. And you probably have to replace the unit, but you can depart from the same point.
So on most of your drawings that you're showing us, the mechanical room stays where it is, but we'll have to add another mechanical room?
Well, you already have a second room right here.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's second mechanical. So I just
Okay.
wanted to keep tabs on where all that goes.
Sure.
Puts the director here. And again, workroom, and behind the desk is one of the two existing toilets, the other one's here. And then out here, so all your extra parking's here, so your evening meeting room use now gets both the local history room and the meeting room, and two toilets, and can be locked right across there. So at night, you're closed from here down, and people can come and use either the local history or the other. And what I wasn't clear on was whether the New Hampshire collection was in the room.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay, so then we can make the building a little bit smaller. And then what's not missing in all of these, of course, is storage just comes way on the end. So we can, if you put it in the middle somewhere, it just becomes an obstacle to your viewing. Okay. This one puts the adults who need hopefully a little less supervision in the old part, puts the children in the new part, and that allows us to go back and have the big barn door that you liked previously so that you could have connection between the children. But this is the same basic organization at this end. And then using that entrance as the entrance to the library. So basically where you're standing, you're sitting at where the circulation desk would be. And then you have to take out some partitions here. This room here, the mechanical room's still here, your office is gone, so there's very little modification here. This ends up being a little study room. Or presumably it could be some special audio room or an office for someone in the future. So, staff in the middle, meeting rooms at the back. So that, of the three variants of this basic footprint seemed to make the most sense in terms of what you said you wanted to do. And then, you know, obviously, we need to have a lot of discussion about, does it make sense to have a break here, or can we
Right.
put it far away? Do you really want the young adults right under your nose?
They probably don't want to be right under our nose.
Right. that sort of thing. So this actually supports the stack count of the previous thing. If I'm not on the picture, it doesn't go ahead. So these are just the same plans rotated so that they're bigger, but I have them on paper, which would probably be easier. But because I understood that when they were turned that way, they were really small and hard to see. But rather than go through this way, I think it makes more sense to just flip the paper over.
I'm looking at the top, at the wetlands.
Yes,
If we extended the 32-foot access out,
yes.
okay,
Could you make this narrower?
could we make this narrower to allow us to get to back parking?
That is what this does.
But the first plan was also the least obtrusive, correct? As I remember. I'm trying to think about the least, I'm backing up now. What was the least disruptive plan to the existing use of the building?
Any of the ones that only touch along here,
Okay, so the big box was
more
More.
disruptive.
Sure.
And,
but the big box would also have been the cheapest, correct? Or least,
that's
Lesser.
now his department.
Not there yet.
all right, no, okay,
No.
I'm just trying to, because I'm thinking in terms of perimeter, as you're describing.
Well, there's perimeter, there's duration of construction to
Yeah.
build the thing and the ease of construction. This one might cost more because you get the parking you need, whereas in the other one you don't, so you wouldn't have to build this parking lot.
I mean, just as a general summary, the perimeter issue's not that big of an influence on the cost.
Mm-hmm.
What you're looking at in any of the plans like that allow your addition to happen without any major disruption to operations, and then we do some switcherooing and renovate the rest of it afterwards.
I'd like
That's
to
what we
remind,
did when we put this addition on, that's how it worked. They built the addition and then broke through the wall and we sort of moved
And
it.
these would also allow for a less obtrusive roof line.
Yeah, I think it's equivalent. In terms of the impact from the street, they're about the same. But the fact that we can just build a rectangle that supports itself and doesn't have to reach over the, oh, by the way, I brought back all your boards and plans.
I would think that the design would be cheaper than anything that I was proposing. Because you don't really need to build off of the existing roof.
Yeah.
And everything pretty much stays where it is. I want to remind everybody that my objective was to try to come up with something that was going to be a little less expensive, more importantly, something that we could do in stages, and that we would be able to avoid the 2/3 vote. Anything that would accomplish that is great. The other benefit to this, though, that I didn't mention is that you have room for further expansion in the future. And you didn't on the Dearborn site. We looked at that and we would have had to have done a 2-story in order to expand the Dearborn site in the future.
We actually discussed that
Yeah.
in the office, whether it made sense to put this kind of set piece on the end, which is the likely place you're gonna grow, or whether it makes sense to put it back. Remember, all the other ones put the meeting room here so that you could just keep that forever,
Right.
and
No,
that's another thing to weigh.
Yeah, well, my assumption was that the meeting room would go into the old front of the old library simply because it didn't have to be, you didn't have to view it. And I was wondering about, the need to have to remove a supporting wall in order to, gain viewing access. So when I'm looking at all of this, I'm wanting to get Andre's expertise as to which would be the simplest and allow the greatest ease of construction and do it in steps and allow us to actually start work in as soon a period as possible.
We're not gonna do anything till town meeting, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Just one, you brought up a good point that I wanted to mention. In this scheme, I hope I've got the right one up, yeah. Any of the ones that put the program space there involve demolishing the mechanical space. So in this one, the mechanical space reappears way over on the right hand end. Because you don't have room for the 88 seats or whatever it was. So that, I think it gives us plenty to sort of chew on in terms of all this.
Mary Ann, Paul, what do you think?
I like the big square off the back. I like having the meeting room over where you have to demolish the mechanical room. I don't know how much that adds to our cost.
Oh, I like this better. I like the meeting room in the back.
What we're looking at there.
Yeah, one of those configurations.
It does not bother you, the limited site? What, you can put in a closed circuit TV or something?
I mean, into the meeting room itself?
We
No,
don't,
not in
we
the
don't
meeting
see in the
room.
meeting room now.
No, I don't care about the meeting because you don't see into it, but the circulation desk does not see in this plan.
Well,
the
yeah, but there was
nonfiction.
another one that, where you, this one maybe, where you can.
That one has the meeting room in the front. That one has the meeting room in the back.
But here, you
Yeah.
can see, yeah.
You think you can see well enough? Looks to me like we got a big blind spot.
Well, I think this one, the D plan, puts the least visible part is adult nonfiction.
Yeah, which is that's what's in here, so.
What I like about this one, and by virtue of the fact of where the meeting room is as you're alluding to, if we ever have to do something down the road, it's sort of like building a building without a supporting wall in the end.
That's D, yes, that's D.
Okay, that you could always add another, you know, you could take what is now that existing meeting room, use for something else, and essentially add on another space for a meeting room down the road.
So you can see the meeting room if there was no wall there, so your center desk wouldn't really need to be moved if you were expanding either.
Yeah.
And, yes, yeah.
So this rectangle is, I'm measuring it right now, 42. And it's 57 feet from here to here. So, you know, if we can introduce a few columns down the middle, not a lot, maybe 3, then it becomes relatively easy to.
There's no way to do it without columns.
No, there's a way, everything is a way, it's just, we're playing a game of cost.
No, we want to try to come up with our most efficient costs on construction, I'm hoping.
But we also want to preserve as much flexibility of space as we can, and columns
That's-
are a big limiter there.
Well, yeah. Well, the other building, the Dearborn building, has columns though, right? Yeah, I think it has several right in the middle.
Just pointed, yeah.
You do what you have to do, but,
Well, it's gotta work, because if we save a lot of money, but we produce a building that doesn't work very well, then you've actually wasted money.
But we put columns in most libraries that we've built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really just good planning between you and the architects to say, well, here's what we plan to do our stack, and put the columns so they're not in the way in any way.
Right, yeah. You incorporated in the stack then, right?
Well, then you can't
Yeah,
use
all right,
the
yeah.
stacks. Oh, well.
Well, you can't move that one. You can turn it 90 degrees, we've done that before.
Well, Andre, can you weigh in on any of these as to what you think would be the most efficient and easiest for you to construct, and the one that you would like best if you were, you know?
Well, from a construction point of view, something that adds onto the end of it, like what we're looking at up there, becomes much more efficient, faster to construct, and less obtrusive to the library while they're in operation. Then, you know, to look at individual schemes, if if we have to relocate a mechanical space, there's a cost associated with that, but, you know, you still have to look at what works best for the town, you know, in the overall scheme of things, where do you want your meeting space, because that's used a lot by the town, you know, off hours and things, so it's gotta be in a good spot. And there may be advantages not having the kids by an entry point, you know, you might wanna have the adults there, because you don't want people coming in that other door, or you'd have to just make it a one-way, but, you know, so there's lots of little things like that, that I think the organization has to weigh in on. Construction-wise, though, I just think you're gonna be well ahead of the game by constructing the addition out back.
So on this particular plan, the heating room or the utility room stays where it is, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's gotta be something of a cost savings over removing the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Right, that's what I'm looking for, is some of the built-in advantages that you have on this design. And then, of course, do the bathrooms that we have, do they stay?
Yes, I failed to point out, if you see blue walls, the blue walls are all walls that you own now.
Uh-huh.
The black walls are all walls that are newly built.
Right.
So
Oh.
everything you see blue exists.
So that just looks like it'd be the cheapest layout in terms of implementing. And, you know, if your parking spaces, yeah, maybe a little more money, but shoot, you.
Well, you can't, yes, but at the same time, if you're building a meeting room for 88 people,
Yeah, right.
you gotta have 40,
Yeah, and it's
some odd
fairly.
parking space.
Yeah, it's inexpensive, relatively, to do that. So. And you could create the same kind of nice bench area with a Wi-Fi around the entry there, right? You could make that an inviting area to want to sit in, and outside if you wanted. Trying to add some of the features that the Dearborn had. That.
Well, one of the things I kind of, excuse me for a moment, I'm going back to this picture. This is pretty pleasant.
Yeah, great.
That would become the entrance to that wing, and you don't have to do a lot, except, you know, some of it gets paved. But it's back a ways. It's not like we're paving right onto your toes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that
Well,
makes
so
sense.
far that one looks like it'd have my vote as far as pretty good idea.
So
Yeah, we're
we
30
could price
feet
a
back to the park.
clear span versus a column option, you know, it's easy to look at.
Okay,
to see
that'd be
what,
good, just to see what the difference would
and
be.
then you guys can talk about, you know, whether that's worth it.
Okay.
Another thing we can do, we've got this big barn door here, and I don't know where the opening needs to go, we haven't talked about it, but if you shifted it a little so that you had solid material right down the middle, put a column here, and then you really only need one other one somewhere over here to run a support line.
Maybe
Right,
it could
all
be a
the-
piece of the desk or something.
Yeah, it could be in the desk.
So that new area that you're adding is 4,700 square feet then, or what is the square footage of the new?
It's, as I say, it's the same as the other configuration, just
Okay.
cut and pasted a different way.
Okay.
Because
No,
there's
that's
so
great.
many balls in the air, I didn't actually go and calculate each of them. I
No,
just-
but that's.
Yeah.
So what have we lost from across the street? Anything?
Functionally, no, I mean, is everything optimized? This is just a first shot,
So I
so.
understand that.
We haven't lost any functional areas.
Our stack space is still there.
The actual count of numbers of books
Right.
is the same.
Our meeting space is
The
roughly
same.
the same size, same.
Same number of seats, this is actually
Okay.
cut out of the other plan.
Okay,
We don't have the porch.
right.
Well, you can build a porch if you want a porch. I'm not saying that the other scheme was bad, I'm just saying from a functional point of view,
No, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just
Is there a
Thinking out
reason to
loud.
keep the door here? I mean, it's easier just to have one entrance.
Well,
and-
you do need to be able to get people out. In this scheme, which puts adults over there, you could very well lock it and take away the vestibule. You don't need the vestibule down there.
Right, that's what I was thinking, it's a little more space for seating or
It'd
whatever.
be a lot of space, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
because
is.
then you could run stacks through. And,
Yes,
and it also improves visibility.
Yes.
But again, what I was sort of wearing kid gloves in terms of not touching the purple whenever I could avoid touching the
no,
purple.
I get that, but if you
Yeah.
just took the,
Mhm.
right,
Now we're into, phase 2 adjustments.
Right.
So I think
Right,
that's
right,
a good,
right.
I think that's a good idea.
So this wall here would be eliminated then?
Yes,
That's the only wall of the structure we have that you have to eliminate?
but actually this door, if you look at the plan, see this door right here?
Yeah.
That's that door.
Uh-huh.
So the elimination starts from the side of that window, roughly. Yeah, about from the side of that window to the side of the other window.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's not, but remember the roof up here is a kind of a clipped hip.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not a, you'd have to overbuild a little piece of gable from about here
Yeah.
to the end.
It's not, you could stay.
The other thing is, you've got a roof configuration, there's not a lot of overbuilding, there wouldn't be a lot of sort of truss over truss attic space that you then, when we've built projects like that, everybody comes by and says, why aren't we using all that space up there? And there's a good reason for it, but
Well, quite frankly, that's one of the beefs we heard about the fire station, is that there's a hell of a lot of roof.
yeah.
Yeah,
And whatever and I should think if we were going to try and do as you were alluding to earlier, which is the good-sized house with the attached barn, which
Mhm.
sort of, fits in with a motif of our community, then whatever we can do to perhaps eliminate that big tall roof is going to be to our advantage,
now,
aesthetics-wise and cost-wise.
to get the AC into the old part of the building, how would you put the units, the air handlers, would they go in the attic, or would you use, where are you gonna, do you have any ideas on where that, how we
You're
would?
getting ahead of us, I probably would not, try not to put it in the attic, because we've
Yeah.
got this big mechanical space on the ground where you can
Mhm.
get after them. And then you have the whole issue of where the insulation is, we'd
Yeah.
like to insulate below the attic. But the other thing I like about this scheme is, even though it's skinny, what that means is that there are no rooms buried in the middle. So, rooms that would benefit from having a window are on the perimeter, and that I
Mhm.
think will make for a more pleasant solution. So in answer, what have you lost? It's sort of like, the difference between going to a tailor and getting a suit custom made where you pick everything, the fabric, how wide you want the lapels and everything else, versus finding one ready-made, and at least you found the coat ready-made, you had to buy the pants. So yeah, there's some inherent, everything won't be precisely exactly the way you might thought from the beginning, but functionally, we can make it work, so.
Yeah, that plan of the existing allows you to, reuse materials where you can and upgrade them maybe in a later phase if you
Mhm.
choose to do it that way. It all depends on the type of appropriation and fundraising, you accomplish. But it's certainly, you're getting what you need, which is your new addition, and,
So, Gordon, you wouldn't even want to consider starting a parking area if we had a nice, attractive rendering that you could display to the
I
public?
wouldn't.
You don't even want
Nope.
to go there? Okay.
Marianne?
I need time to process
Okay,
this,
all right,
and
that's fine.
I'll leave these behind.
okay, D is the one that we're
Well, yeah, why don't we make some note as to which one we're looking at now, so we don't get confused?
No, I know, it's this one, and I didn't label them in the PowerPoint, but I
Well,
did
it's not
label
way
them.
it's us, let's see that.
Yeah.
What's that? Little black line with the rectangle with the little lines.
The septic system.
That's your existing,
Septic tank.
that's
The
the
existing.
septic tank and the field is right there now, and as you can see, you couldn't put it in today because it's,
Right.
Right
Yeah,
next
so
to
it's
the-
over, yeah.
so that means and in the site plans, they were all located further upstream,
Yeah.
pardon me,
Yeah,
uphill.
so that's over there?
Yeah,
It's up
that
here,
would be
over
back.
there. It's up
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the existing one
Okay.
is right there, it's like under
It's
the
on the back
bench.
So that's
Back of the
the,
parking
that's
lot.
the school's septic system.
No, that's,
over there.
that's ours.
No, over there.
Oh, over here
Yes.
is the schools.
The
yeah.
one that we looked at last week
Yes,
is over
that's the
there.
school.
I can go back to that if you like. Let's go back to the one that isn't so horrible. So, yeah, this is the existing septic system. This is
Yeah.
where you'd likely have to do the new septic system because your well is here and it's gotta be away from the well. And all the surveys identify the school septic system as being right there.
If we want to put that septic system much further out, though, it's really not that great an expense, is it? I mean, if we're going to look at this thing as the ability to expand in the future, it would be a little prudent to move it as far and off to the side as possible so that you wouldn't need to interfere with digging all that up in the future. Would you?
That's true, and not having under parking would be a big
Yeah.
advantage, so if you, when you go to service it. I don't know how the future, what the future holds, but I think having a way in means,
Yeah.
you know, the town may elect to build some other building up here at
Sure,
some point.
yeah, no, that's true. What about getting the electrical, Andre, to there? Would that be underground from the existing pole that's out front? Would you go along the side that's close to the school and take meters
Yeah, I
out
mean,
to that?
it's a little bit more of an expense, but it looks so much nicer
Yeah.
in the long term.
Well, I'm
You're not
mo-
dealing with things falling on it and ripping it.
Yeah, and I know that utilities are exempt from wetlands, and so you should probably end up eliminating some of your wetlands if you were to do it.
Well, I should think, if this is something that we were going to pursue, that this is the one that we should think, that we should be pursuing with.
D.
Yeah, I would agree.
Christie, you really don't want the meeting room in the front? I'm just making sure.
No, I don't think so. I like that plan better.
Oh, okay. There's something
Well-
like the lines of sight there.
Well, what are we looking at? Lines of sight, we have circulation desk here.
Yeah.
So we're essentially using nonfiction,
Yeah,
which we can't see now anyway. I mean, there's a whole wing.
you're right.
That we can't
You
see.
got me on that one, you can't see back here,
Okay.
you're absolutely right.
I should think the functionality of having, you know, the children's area, which needs the attention the most, obviously, I should imagine, closest to the circulation desk and,
The only disappointing aspect of that is that, you know, the adults don't get the benefit really of the new construction.
They can
Right.
go play in the children's room.
Yeah, right.
well, except that they have the meeting room, they have the, you know, the use of, you know, somebody said that they want to have
And the
a
history.
small
room.
meeting,
Mhm.
okay, that was perhaps not open to the public, but they were looking for, you know, a quote unquote, a town boardroom.
Sure.
We have the local history room, which would be available, which is, these are all uses of the building above and beyond going to get, you know, pick up a book or pick up a DVD.
And there are a lot of adults that go to the children's room because
Mhm.
they're bringing their children.
Exactly.
Christian, a question for you on, this is the plan that has the local history room attached, accessible at the same time as the meeting room?
Yes.
Yeah, but I would imagine it would have a door that would lock so that, you know, we
Okay.
could lock it if people
Oh,
weren't using
alright.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, either this one or this one have the advantage of some small group having a meeting at night
Mhm.
in there, access to,
No, that's really a nice arrangement, I think.
Yeah.
I think you're really,
So
That's
the
crazy.
difference between C and D is that it's
It's-
just that you've got kids.
yeah, whether, the only variable is, do the kids go in the front or the back, and does the meeting room go in the front or the back?
I like the meeting room in the back. I think this is another decision to make. If there's a door here, then, well, we talked about locking that, which is possible too. Right.
You can alarm it. For emergencies or anything.
And so much depends on how if at some point in the future there were a children's librarian who had, you know,
He's still my heart.
well,
Right.
then you'd move the children's librarian there and you'd put a little desk there, and then that would take care of that whole thing, but
And how about with this one?
on this one, you're not required to do that. But you also have this space as a sort of swing space, well, it's not
Right,
up there
right,
anymore.
right, right.
Now, we haven't massaged this yet to let any air out of it. I mean, there's large amounts of space here and there. All the aisles are regulation, but, you know, right here, for example, in front of the circulation desk, there's, you know, 9 feet to the end of the stack, so, you know, like from where I am to the,
That just makes me want to take a huge deep breath, you know, which we can't do now, so that's okay with me.
Now, again, my goal is not to make it meaner, I'm just saying that we haven't tried.
So,
Well, I should say then that, I should think that this is the one that we should think about pursuing.
either C or D.
Yeah, I would agree. The square off the back seems to work.
Yep, this would be big.
Not B. And not
So
A.
Andre, if we're, you know, I'm very concerned about the fact that I got up and I made some statements about costs on my proposal, and I made the statement of 1.3 million, and I was willing to accept 1.5 million. We're not really going to be doing my study, and I really don't think it's necessary, but at the same time, I'm hoping that this kind of, since it looks to me like this could be done, since we're not having to really do much on the existing building, we're not having to use any extraordinary trusses or any of that other sort, that this could be done for the figures that I was mentioning in public. Do you see anything that would cause that not to be the case? I mean, we're looking at 4,700 square feet that is being newly constructed, and if we figured $250 a square foot commercial cost, we're...
I really have to say at this juncture, that's an incredibly unfair question to ask. Because we haven't, you know, this is a beginning,
Yeah.
okay? We don't know as trustees and as staff, how this is going to evolve to the next step before it goes to Andre, so.
No,
I
but
mean, you
we,
could say, Andre, how much is 4,700 square feet of new construction cost? That's a legitimate question, but,
well, that's
You
essentially...
know, we have to
what I'm-
identify what level of renovation wants to happen in the existing, and whether that's in phase 2 or 1, those kind of questions all have to be identified. And also, we have to look at heating systems and
Okay, but wait a
and
minute,
other
Andre,
upgrades.
I
So,
know-
but you have to understand that from our perspective, it's not wise to start throwing numbers around until we know what the full scope of work is associated with the project. In my experience, and it's a lot of years it's counterproductive to throw numbers around too early. I will tell you that you're going to save money because you are using half of your needed square footage.
Right.
And, you know, the upgrades that you'll do to it are mostly, at this point, cosmetic. So,
Right.
you know, what you've, the move you've made is good. It's
My question though is just if you're looking at that rectangle that you're having to make, and it's 4,700 square feet, and you've got these estimates on commercial space, they range from $125 to $250 a square foot, and they're there so that people can gauge roughly what rough costs are going to be, and you know what's factored in on those: bathrooms, air conditioning, a certain level of trim. So if you're going to look at that and you're going to say that's 4,700 square feet in a relatively simple rectangle, it would appear that using that you could bring it in at the $1.3 million. Now, obviously, there are going to be some areas we're going to have to remove a wall. We're going to have to, create other little adjustments to the existing building. But I really don't see how that structure can come in at a much higher level than that. I'm asking if that's a reasonable assumption to make based on that drawing. Now, if it was a more complicated drawing like the one I had, then I would say it would be much harder to estimate.
Take the fifth, Andrew.
Huh?
take the fit.
As I say, this is an outline. This is not necessarily what we're going to take to the next level. And I should think that that would be a question would be very difficult to answer. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Andre, but you have to.
No, as I say, there's going to be savings, and I say significant savings from the original budget. If we go with this scheme, we were getting to keep a chunk of the parking spaces we were going to have to create in the new building.
Mm-hmm.
And, we still have to put a septic field in, but we don't need a well, so there's lots of savings. But until we identify what's the building gonna need, it doesn't make sense to throw numbers around yet.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
may I make a few comments?
Certainly.
As I look at this whole proceeding now, I look at it through three different perspectives. One is an architect, another is a patron of the library, and the third is a taxpayer in the town of Tuftonboro. And evaluations on these three different points of view sometimes come into conflict. But my understanding of this whole procedure is that we are looking at an alternative, a cost-saving alternative to going ahead with the previously understood approach of building across the street a standalone library. And then using this building as the police facility. And having been on the study committee for the police facility, I've became reasonably familiar with this building and understand a lot of the complications from slab on grade and location of the septic field out back and so on. From what I see, I concur in the alternatives here to go ahead with the one which we've been looking at. But we'd have to add into that consideration of what happens then with the police facility. In terms of the town needs, I think that is a demand to be resolved higher than the library. And there's going to be added cost by building a standalone library, I presume, or police facility. I presume that would go now on the Dearborn property, since that's freed up. In doing the report for the police facility, Andre came forth with a ballpark cost for a building of the appropriate size. And that's going to be an increase over what it would be if we reused this. So I think as a taxpayer in the town, in a sequencing of these things, I think that has to be added into the final judgments when we go before a town meeting with whatever the scheme is. It's not just a matter of saving dollars on this building.
I think that's fair. But another way to look at it is, to the degree that we can say police plus library and 2 sites and 1 building, the police, as I've looked at the police plan, that required modifications to this, probably significant modifications to this building. So whichever of these permutations reuses the most of the library would seemingly be the less expensive to the town overall.
Yeah, I think we're all in concurrence that this building, which is structurally pretty sound, has complications, but it's a pretty sound, yeah, reuse it. So I'm not making a judgment on which way this should go at this point. Just, as Andre says, it's too early for these final evaluations.
And what this does, in this plan, putting an addition on, it separates the issues. Now it's no longer, well, you're gonna build a new library, what's going to happen to the old building? Which has always been kind of a stumbling block. And people could try and explain, well, yes, it could be reused for a police station. It could be used for any number of community activities. If it stays a library, then the police station can be built, can be planned and built on its own, and then that can stand on its own issue. Everything else has always been tied together. This unties it, in my opinion. Anyway.
Just a comment as somebody who moved here sort of after a lot of the library and, the fire station. It seemed like there was a lot of controversy in town before I arrived here, and I sort of fell into the middle of it. My perception was that the library, people were saying we have to build a library so that the police station can go here, and in effect, my perception, maybe it was unfair, was that the police station was in essence being held hostage to the library needs. So that's, as you say, this takes that perception off the table.
Well, heretofore, all the plans that had anything to do with the library were based on this property, either here or the building I proposed, because at the time, the Dearborn property was not available. Okay, it was only in this last standalone plan that came forward as a result of the library building committee's work that, the Dearborn.
And as I said, that's right when I arrived,
Yeah.
so I missed everything else. So I'm just agreeing with you with your last point that this separates the issues.
It does.
Yeah. And again, it may have been an unfair perception on my part.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to my perception, and I perceive a lot of open-mindedness here today. I find
I
it
agree with
refreshing,
that.
and I congratulate you folks. Thank you very much. You're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You can't live with an issue for as long as, certainly, Mary Ann and Christie have lived with it, and Paul and I coming up behind. It's getting old.
No doubt.
I'd really like to say, I'd like to get this resolved, I'd like to get all the building plans for the town resolved and done, and we can go back and enjoying our community again.
That's pretty much what motivated me.
Well then, so what do we,
I think next step, I would assume, is to take what you've directed us to do and put it in a form that's useful to Andre, so that we can get to the number that. I was gonna make one other little point, which is that, this is PowerPoint, so it covers it. Some arrangement like this does unlock the rest of the upland, but I wouldn't put the police station.
No, they're not gonna want it there either.
Yeah, because but any other town use that needs parking that maybe has different hours than the library would make some sense, because then you'd have economies of scale. But so anyway, I think, yeah.
I just want to ask again about solar possibilities.
Yeah, you can,
Because we'll have a lot of south-facing roof.
yes.
Um,
The lighter side of that gable roof all along there could all potentially be.
I'd really love to see us do something like that.
Can I just ask where we are financially with the money that the selectmen, in other words, they approved 16,500,
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
Can I say, where are we and how is Andre's work gonna impact that? I have no clue how much.
I'm an in for a penny, in for a pound kind of person. So I'm not worried about, I'm gonna carry this through till the job's done, and then we've got a fixed fee, so it's not, it's shame on me if I spend twice as much time getting to the answer.
So, how much time would it be before you were able to give us an exterior rendering of what this Plan D would look like?
Oh, that is something that if you're interested, aside from what Andre's, please correct me, he's going to want to know an outline specification of how this is built, and we'll have to do a little code investigation to make sure it's being built in a way that's allowable. We start getting into, is there a sprinkler system, is there not a sprinkler system?
That's a bad word.
Okay.
Now, I thought
We had one here last weekend, right in the middle of the,
Homemade sprinkler.
with a failed pipe, and we were having,
But the very next thing
well,
he's
we were
gonna.
having a discussion, once again, what's worse, a burn book or a wet book?
Right.
Either way, you lose a book.
Well, but, you're right, you maybe only lose this book instead of losing all these books too.
Yeah.
But the very next question he's gonna ask me is, well, what do the walls look like, and what's it covered with, and in figuring that out, I would think the next thing to do would be a three-dimensional model.
And
of everything.
my follow-up question was going to be, have you considered, since most of this building is brick facing, were you going to eliminate some of the brick facing in some parts of this building? Or were you going to do clapboard? The Dearborn property one was all clapboards, or were you going to try, sort of thinking about a combination, leaving this with the brick facing and the new?
Well, I'm the waiter, and you guys are ordering the meals. So really, it's a question of cost. And I will say that I don't see any reason why you would have to use brick on the addition. Just like you wouldn't be surprised to see a little brick house with a wooden barn behind it.
Right.
So I would probably discourage you from spending money to take brick away from what you already have.
Right.
Because I think you could spend that money better. But, and I think once we have the third dimension on this plan, then you guys can ask Andre, well, what if we made, well, there's really, none of this is really visible from the street.
Right.
But you might do something here by the entrance. I can't see spending a lot of money here or back here, so.
Well, great, that's, you couldn't have answered the question better.
Well, I still haven't got an answer to the question. Andre, you are working under this same $16,000 that we have, is that correct or no?
No.
he's
No.
working on
So you're a separate figure that we're gonna have to be dealing with. I'm just thinking that, okay? So we're at 16,500 right now?
No,
With the-
not
just
yet.
the architects? No, I'm just saying,
Yes,
right now with, all right, so to ask Andre to go forward, where is that money coming from?
Has to happen.
I mean, seriously?
well, it's gonna
It's a
have,
good concern.
that's right. It has to come from us, it'll have to come from us, but it's gonna have to come from somewhere.
Well, Andre, what do you normally charge to estimate a building? I mean, do you have an hourly rate that you?
For instance, the process for all the work that we did up to this point, I think our fee was $8,800. And that was over, a couple of years of meetings and things like that. So, again, it's gonna depend on, do you want me at all the town meetings and presentations and things like that? And that's, it's a discussion that we'll have with the board and see what level of involvement you want us to be. And very often, we've also deferred billings until, the thing got passed. So,
Well,
we're here to help. We're not worried about it.
All right, so can you, you can't do anything without the elevations being done?
What I will need, and Eric will need this also, is he's gotta tell me, do you want anything done at all to this building?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, fix the ceiling.
redo the heat, you know, new acoustical ceiling, new carpets,
Yeah.
repaint. You have
Yes.
to have a discussion about all those things.
Mhm.
And what's this building gonna look like as far as the wall system, you know, what level of energy efficiency we're looking for? You know, I think these are all easy answers, but we just need to, you know, we can say, let's duplicate what we're gonna do on the other library as far as a wall system. Keep it really simple, because we still have those details. So those are just the discussions that you as trustees have to have with Eric, and then he's gotta turn around and tell me, do this or that.
Mhm.
And it's not a complicated thing at all, I just need to know what it is that you wanna do.
Well, I should think whatever information that we have already generated and paid for
Yeah,
from the last time around, we would probably want to use again.
yeah, of
I
course.
mean, as far as the level of the energy efficiency and the, you know, lighting that we had planned out and anything like that, I think we would want to reuse that.
Right, and so with the existing building, are you happy with its energy efficiency? You know, do you wanna replace all the
We
windows?
need
Do
to
you
replace,
wanna,
we really need to replace windows.
you wanna go in and you know, add insulation? Is it possible to do that up in your attic spaces? But those are,
This is, you know, this is a quite reasonable, building to heat,
Yeah.
okay?
so you've got the experience with it. Those are just the questions that, as I go through doing an estimate, now's the time to tell me these things, so that later on, when we've asked for money and it's not enough, you know, we're.
Don't say that
well,
out loud.
well-
It would be really great if we could continue to have radiant heat. I don't know what you do about the oldest part of the building there, but, you know, from here back to here, it's all on the floor. And I really wish we could do something with solar, and those revision people, there's no money up front. They pay for it all, and we get the benefits.
Andre, when you're doing your estimates though for this existing building, will you be able to break that
Oh,
out so that we
absolutely,
could, you know, as I keep saying, it may be that we will find it difficult, whatever the number is, to get a 2/3 vote, and it may be that the decision will be to do it in stages, and so we would be able to price it on
Like
what
that
a
menu.
finished building was over there, and then the next step would be to come in and renovate this
Right,
as
right.
a cost.
No, we would do that, and if there's specific things, you know, like replacing all the windows, that can be an option.
All right.
I could comment on solar. I attended the meeting at the fire station when the fellow came in to talk about that. And according to him anyway, there isn't enough roof space at the fire department to make it efficient to put solar panels on it without having a big array out in the field at the Central Park. So the actual roof space that's available, you know, in the right location may be an issue when it comes to putting solar here. You may not be able to get as much as you might think, even though it might be worth doing it at some point in time. That's all.
Even enough to, you know, for the hot water, what do you call that?
Have you done it to preheat,
Yes,
like
Mhm.
Durham?
Yeah.
There's water preheating, but you're a different animal from a fire station quite a bit, because of, you know, there's no showers,
Right.
there's no washing machines, there's no,
Mhm.
you've got lighting and heat are your primary.
I'm thinking of the trees and the woods that would actually shade the roof, and what you might have to do to open that up to get enough to make your panels, you know, efficient, even as small as they might be. Could get tricky, that's all.
Okay.
so does Dennis get a chance, do we all get a chance to like look at this and say, no, we like this over here or that over here?
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
course.
well,
Yeah.
that's a place to start.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just take, at your leisure, go through and say, hey, what's this doing over here? Or, you know, what things do you, want to have at your fingertips. Where's the copier? You know, things like that. Does it make sense to have periodicals in large print here and some computers there? And where do these guys go?
Where do you
And part of it is just what is happening is the stacks are lined up to give you the maximum visibility. But if you want to change this green one to that orange one, it doesn't make any difference to me. That's just what book you put on the shelf. This shows you have the capacity for everything. I mean, this may make no sense, that paper bag's way down here. You may want to put them here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, the other thing that I'm curious about is you have twice as much building than you have now, so you have to buy more stacks, and you have to buy more chairs, and you have to buy more. So we didn't, you know, or you have to get them from somewhere, put it that way. So that's something to consider, what happens there. Maybe the furniture, I'm ashamed to say it, maybe you take the old furniture and put it in the kids' area.
Yeah,
You
great
buy
idea.
New furniture in the adults' area.
Great idea.
That's not a bad thought. Okay, so I guess the next steps are that staff can look at D. You're gonna do
Yeah, and
Three
an outline
elevation.
spec and a 3D
Okay.
picture.
then we'll get together and go over, we'll get together and talk about staff and the trustees about any potential changes we wanna go there. And then we can call Andre. Does that sound like the chain of events?
Yes. Only other, I think we've covered, I think this, as one statement I always make in my office is all great architecture comes down to parking spaces and bathrooms.
Right.
So, that's what people care about the most. This will, I believe from past analysis, meet the code requirement, and it uses the two you've got and it adds two, but you may say, we want another one. So, or you may say we want another two.
Eric, any chance, remember the walkthrough that
Yeah, once the,
program?
yes,
We can get one of those,
once the model's made, it's actually,
right,
I should say it's extremely difficult and I have to work many long hours, but it's
No.
actually quite simple. You build a model and then you just kind of click with the mouse and say, I want to stand here and look there,
Yeah.
and then I want to stand here and look there, and
Yeah.
I want to stand here and
Yeah.
there. And then you say go and it goes all
yeah,
by
I
itself.
found that very helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful for me too.
Can you send me
Come here.
smaller versions of this so that we can write on it and,
I can give you the whole
all right.
presentation if you'd
Max,
like.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask if the PowerPoint could be made available.
Sure, it's, I'd like to keep my thumb drive, but you're wanting to download.
Yeah.
How would we make it available? Would you post it on our website or what?
I don't think why would we post the whole thing?
Oh, I don't know.
I wouldn't, let's proceed with what we want to proceed with. Because otherwise it just ends to muddy the waters even more than.
Yeah, you just confuse
Why don't you
people.
just send me an email and say, I would
Please
like
send me
a
the-
copy of this plan sent to the following people, and I will send it.
Or you could just put a copy of that plan on the website.
Yeah, I can put it on our website.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'll
just-
send it to
just
you
the
and-
one that you're interested in,
Yeah,
is the
just
one
do
that I
it.
wanted to.
Plan D for website, okay?
Right?
But also, could you send this bigger thing as well?
The site plan, sure. Mhm.
Just, because that'll help people
Yeah.
have an idea of.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to really step back to understand what the logic of the site development, how it affects the building. Okay?
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
yeah.
Thank you.
I had something I wanted to pass out to a few of you people. You might not, you might not appreciate it, but it might help you figure out why I made the efforts I've made to try to move this along. And what I'm passing out is the vote totals that we've had over the last, since '08, '09. And some of this information that I've referenced, and I don't know if you guys want this or not.
You wanna see
Find
it?
it interesting.
Do I want to see Exeter? Yeah, I'd love to see Exeter.
And I can just leave these here. But the
I'll show you the movie.
the column on the far right, it shows you how many ballots were cast on the Tuesday meeting at the townhouse. And so those are most of the people in town that vote, that go to that. And then the column on the left is the number of people that went to town meeting and cast a vote. And then you have the vote totals for the libraries and the fire stations, etc. And what I found, a couple of numbers that I found interesting, and was one, the number of people that voted no for the library on the second vote, and that was for the vote back here in the woods, was the same number of no votes as on the firehouse. So we have a pretty consistent group of people that are not going to vote for anything. Then the other thing that I thought was most interesting, because there was had been some allusion to the fact that we didn't work very hard to get out the vote on the last vote we had on it. And if you look over on the right-hand corner, there were 556 people that voted at the townhouse, and there were 536 people that came to the town meeting to cast a vote. And we only able to get 60%. Now, one thing I want to point out is there were 9 people on our advisory committee that went out and were voting for it, the library. We had an organized effort to do this. The people that voted no are an unorganized, loose group of local people, and they still managed to come up with quite a few more votes than what they had time before. So I'm thinking that what motivated me to want to pursue a different tactic than the wear them down tactic is because I think it's years out before we're going to even come close to wearing anybody down. And you can make what you want out of these numbers, and you can say, none of it matters, that it's all psychology and it's all a matter of wearing down voters. I'm basing my actions on the fact that I think people are, unless we give them something new, unless we give them a plan with hard numbers and a commitment to go in a specific way with a definite outline, we're not going to do any better. Or if we are, it's 5 years out anyway. And I figured I could wait until we do this vote again this year in March before I made my decision, but I'd get the same pushback that I've gotten now, because everybody tends to have a bias on, well, we came so close last time, we would have absolutely done it if there hadn't been this interference by this radical guy that wants to change course. So this is what I use to make my decisions. I use hard numbers and facts, and I look for new information. And if I don't see any new information coming to light, I'm going to assume the results are going to be the same. So that's my spiel. Thanks for everything. Thanks for considering doing something different. Bye.
Thank you. That's it?
You already adjourned, right?
Yes.
Yeah.